everyone, and welcome back to the Literary Layer. Thank you so much for joining. Today we're going to be talking about my favorite books that I have read in 2023 so far. I'm going to go over these in the order that I read them. And the first one I read in February, this is going to be Pachinko by Jin Lee. Now this book is one that you really want to take your time with. When you start reading it, it just gives you that feeling of like, oh wow, this is going to be a really good book. I just want to take my time and just read it slowly because I won't be able to get another first read with this. Pachinko is a historical fiction book. Now, throughout the book, it really takes you on an emotional roller coaster. It's really heartbreaking. A lot of sad things happen throughout the story to Sonja as well as her parents and her family. So they go through a lot of hardship and deal with a lot of discrimination throughout the book. There was discrimination in Japan towards the Koreans. So that's something that her and her family had to deal with throughout the book. They also had to deal with various family issues throughout the book. And it really takes you on an emotional roller coaster because they'll have something happy that happens, and the happy moments are very few throughout the book. And then it'll just go back down to something sad. And you just, throughout it, you're just hoping that the character eventually has their happy ending, or they find happiness or find peace. And it never really just seems to come and stay. It'll come for a little bit and then just leave, or it won't come at all. So I really enjoyed this book. I typically don't try to read sad books, but I said that with me saying that I don't want to read anything that's sad, I am cutting out a lot of good books that I could potentially be reading. And this one is one that I'm very happy that I picked up, and I can't wait to read this one again. My second one is another one that's from February, and this one is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. And I thought this story was just so cute. So it starts off with Annie. She's going through a breakup and she ends up leaving Manhattan. She basically just spent so much time with this guy. She thought it was going to be happily ever after. And then he decided, hey, he does not want to be with her anymore. So she ups and leaves Manhattan and goes upstate New York and finds a job there. It's a small rural town and she doesn't know anyone that's there. So she ends up meeting a woman named Sophie. And Sophie's a very peculiar woman. She's always dressed up, even if she doesn't have anywhere to go, she's always looking nice. She has her makeup done. She's taking care of herself. She loves to cook. She loves to bake, even if there's no one around to do it for but her. This is something that she loves to do because she's doing it for herself. And Sophie lives in a home that's deep, deep, deep into the woods. So she doesn't have any visitors, and she's doing all these things in this huge mansion. She's doing these things by herself and for herself. And Annie, she's not really used to that because she feels like she always needs someone around. She can't find happiness unless it's with someone else. She doesn't really do anything that's for herself. And so, as the friendship begins to blossom, Annie learns a lot from Sophie. And really, one of the main things in the story is self-love. And, towards the end of the book, Annie really, she sees that she doesn't need anyone else to make her happy. She's going to live life on her own terms. She even does something just as simple as baking a cake and just fully decorating it, putting the strawberries on it, and just, wearing dresses throughout the house. She doesn't have to go anywhere. She doesn't have to see anyone. She doesn't need anyone else's company. She's comfortable with her own, and she really learns to love herself. So this is one that I really enjoyed, and this is Cackle. It was kind of different. It's not what I expected. I thought it would be something that may be creepy, maybe because of the design on the cover. But this was a pleasant surprise, and definitely recommend you picking this one up. The next one is What the Buddha Taught by Walpola Rahula, and this is one that I read in March. I am interested in learning about various religions, and I have a lot of religious books, but I've been so busy lately that I don't really have time to read them right now. But when I get to them, I want to be able to focus on them. So I'm going to wait until I'm a little bit less busy to pick up my other religious books. But this is one that I decided to read, and this is on Buddhism. This book was originally published in 1959, and it really gives an easy to understand breakdown of Buddhism. Now, with Buddhism, the ultimate goal is to obtain nirvana. And nirvana is the end of suffering and the end of rebirth. So Buddhists, they believe that when you die, you're continuously reborn. So you go through life and you go through suffering, which we all know that we go through suffering in life. But this is something with Buddhism, they teach you how to not have self-inflicted suffering. So once you obtain this state of calmness, this state of no self, you've reached nirvana, and you don't come back into the world to go through suffering again. Your rebirth basically ends. The author goes into the fundamentals of Buddhism, and these include the doctrines of the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, the Five Aggregates, karma, rebirth, conditioned genesis, the doctrine of no soul, and the setting up of mindfulness. And so he suggests that when the first time you read this book, you read it out of order, and that's to help you have a clearer understanding of the different topics that are discussed. So he suggests that you read chapter 1, chapter 5, chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 6 in that order. And that's to basically have a clearer understanding. And then when you go back and read the book your second time, you'll read it in order. So I definitely enjoyed this book. After I read it, I purchased some more books on Buddhism. I have some on other religions as well that I plan on reading towards the end of the year. My next book is one that I read in April, and of course this is Their Eyes Are Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. And if you saw my previous video, you know that I really love this book, and I'll link it at the end of the video if you haven't seen that one. This is a beautifully written love story that follows Janie in the Deep South, and it takes you through her life. It not only touches on topics related to romantic love, but the main lesson in this story is really one of self-love. So if you haven't read this one, this is definitely one of my favorite books of all time that I have read. It makes it take some time to get used to the writing style, but I really enjoyed this one. The next one is another one that also did a book review on and a book summary. This is The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, and just amazing, amazing, amazing book. If you have not watched my video on that one, I'll link that one at the end of the video as well. It should be required reading in schools in all the history classes. It's something that's not really talked about, in which over 6 million Black Americans left the South during the Great Migration. When Isabel Wilkerson was writing this book, she interviewed several people that were living witnesses of the Great Migration, and she compiled their stories into one big book. There are 3 main characters in this book. Hands down, one of my favorite books, and definitely recommend this for anyone to go out and pick this book up. My final book is one that I read in June, and this is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. It's a hot and steamy romance, and it involves the main character, which is Marion. She lives in the city of Praine, and she's really just poor, clean. She's doing a lot of cleaning. She doesn't really have much. She lives with her brother, who's poor as well, and he has a disease, which they never say what the disease is, but you can pretty much assume what it is while you're reading the book. She's really just tired of living the struggle life, and she wants to live a life of luxury. So she answers an ad in the newspaper, which is seeking someone to be a blood maid. And so if she takes this job, she'll have to leave her brother, leave the South, and move to the North to become a blood maid. A blood maid is someone who they have to give their blood to the owner of the home. So the owner is someone that's going to be really wealthy. They have a lot of servants. They have food that's available nonstop. They just live a life of luxury. And so Marion decides that she wants to go and be a blood maid and leave her poor struggling life and live one of luxury. Now, this one, I typically don't read books like this, but This one really helped me pull me out of my reading slump. I thought it was just great from beginning to end. This one is really a reminder of how searching for love, power, money, and respect, and just, having tunnel vision towards those things without thinking of the outside consequences, it can really blind you to the harsher realities of life. And so Marion, she is really wondering, hey, did I make the right decision? Because at first she's not seeing it. The only thing she's seeing is a life of luxury. But this one was really a really good read, and I gave this one 5 stars. Those were my top 6 books so far of 2023. What have you read so far? What are you enjoying? Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.